I'll take a sip of water first. Hello everybody, welcome back to another brand new video. Today we are here. Take a look at this. I have never been more sure about my opinion on the V2 Monarch up until now. And today we're going to take a look at it and, finalize my opinion. So let's get started. So I believe it was about, well, the beginning of this year where I had one of these, and I was kind of unsure of it. I was very on the fence about it after I got it, and none of my thoughts really helped me. I was constantly thinking about how much it costs, and then, how it flipped, and then the reality of the situation was I didn't really like it. I thought it was, two blade buys for me. I have one now and I'm going to talk about it, and hopefully at the end of this video I'll be able to decide my opinion on the Monarch V2. So this all started by me trading a Chab. I had a Chab, latchless one specifically, not the best condition, but it was honestly surprisingly a cool experience to have. I flipped it for probably a week or two and was like, this feels like a heavier AB, and I felt an AB before, so I think I'm going to try something new, maybe revisit something old, and this fell in my lap. This was completely restored, and it looks magnificent. The person who did this was Major Rallies on Instagram. I have gone to him for mods before, and he did an absolutely amazing job. I will talk about the mods throughout this video. But again, big shout out to him. If you recall his name, he was mentioned quite a lot in my video of my Basilisk R, my carbon fiber Basilisk, because, he did a lot of the mods on it. And he basically restored this and gave it a brand new life for me. So without further ado, let's just run down some specifications. Typical with the Monarch, we have the Monarch style blade. One of my favorite things about this design is the blade. I would have to say this, if not, is probably one of my favorite blade shapes really out there. There aren't really too many blade shapes out there besides the Medusa that really feel this grail worthy. It's just so nice. It's made out of S35 VM blade steel. It has milled bevels, milled swedges, and it has a really, really nice edge on there thanks to, again, Major Rallies. This was also concrete beat, and it was heavily tipped, and Major Rallies re-tipped it. I didn't get any tip shots in the shot, but it is nice and pointy. I don't know if you can see any of it down there, but it is nice and pointy, very stabby feeling, and he did a great job on the tip. Not only that, but it was the stonewash originally on it was removed for a more finer stonewash. And it's very, very fine. It almost looks like a Cerakote because of how fine it is. It is very, very, very fine. But it also comes with a crown spine, one of my favorite kinds of crown spines. And one of the more unique things about the Monarch is that the contact points on the blade are pinsless, meaning there are no pins anywhere on this knife for the blade to contact the handle. The pivot system on this is stainless steel bushings and washers. These washers are notoriously thick, as all washers are from JK and Joe. I would say, if anything, the tune on this is very good. In fact, before, when it was concrete beat, it was still very good. So that just goes to show how well some of these well-tuned JK knives can hold up, even after concrete beating. But there's also kind of a thing with channel constructed JK knives that are basically just ultimately better than sandwich constructed ones. Lately, a lot of embargoes specifically have been having undersized bushings after being sent to JK. I'm not pointing any fingers or anything. I had an embargo myself. I didn't really feel like mine were undersized. However, I didn't open the knife to actually check. However, I've heard a lot of things since having an embargo about JK undersizing his bushings. I'm not too sure if that's true. I'm just going to leave that to the consensus of the comments. Sorry, my eye is kind of weird today. We have the 6AL4V channel constructed titanium handles with the V2's pattern. Ultimately, I think I like the V1's pattern a lot more for a couple reasons. Mainly the design. I do think the design of this one is cool, and I do think it's very unique looking. It does remind me a bit of the modern day embargo, like slotted handles and stuff like that with the holes, but it does look very nice, and ultimately I like how it looks because it is kind of clean looking. The V1, in my opinion, though, is superior because there's a lot less material taken out of the handles from the design. It's not exactly as neutral as the bearing V1. So all the V2s are bushing now. No more bearings. A lot of people were having mixed feedback, mainly on the handle gap, and I will note from personal experience that the handle gap was huge. It was pretty big, both on the closed position and the open position. It wasn't as bad on the closed position, but it was kind of huge on open position. This one is very well worn in, and as you can see, the handle gap both on the closed and on the open are pretty normal. And also from that, it's very bouncy now. My original Monarch V2 that I had earlier this year wasn't as bouncy or, you know, as nutty as things were to be if they had hidden Zen pins or something like that. Mainly due to the try and improvement to fix the handle gap ultimately. Thankfully, Aaron Major Rallies did protect the contact areas pretty well while redoing the acid wash and everything like that. So this does have the well-worn handle gap that I was to be expecting. Moving on down to the handles, continuing with the mods, we have to talk about the B-blast on these handles, which was also done by him. I wanted these to be B-blasted because I wanted that texture similar to the stonewash. One of my favorite textures is stonewashing on handles. Not as much as on the blades because it's kind of gritty feeling, but this is such a fine one. It doesn't really feel like gritty at all. It doesn't really feel like sandpaper on your fingers, which is what you would feel if you had like a really aggressive stonewash. This also has a nice fine feeling gripping finish with the B-blast. And the flats of this are sanded to a high grit to give that contrast that I think looks really good. I love how this thing turned out. It looks really good. So other things to note about this knife, we have the JK and Johansson signature on the side that is infamous with the Monarch. One of my favorite design aspects, honestly, about the Monarch is that logoing and branding on the side of the channel. Most people put them on the blades, which is still cool, and there is some stuff on the blade like the serial number and S35VN on there as well, but this is just kind of a cool way to have your logo and branding on the knife, and that's honestly one of my favorite things about the Monarch. That's what I have to say about the Monarch itself. Let's talk about my experience with it. My first few days of flipping it were kind of off and on, I would say. I would say the first day I was like, yeah, this is about as like in the middle as I remember, because I remember being really in the middle of I like this a lot, and I also don't really like it that much because of how much money I spent on it, and it really actually doesn't flip as good as I would think it did. It also didn't live up to the V1's like really good. Like I thought the V1 was really good, but this one didn't live up to it, and I was kind of disappointed. I liked it a lot, then I was like, I'll flip something else. Then I was like, ooh, this is great, and then I'll be like, I'd rather flip this Zippy that I have. And I was like so confused because I wanted to like it so bad that I was almost trying to force myself to like it with the first one. That I didn't want to do that with this one. I kind of wanted to just give it its time and see if I truly did like it. And I think my consensus with it is that I do like it. This knife does have a weird balance. I wouldn't say it's like handle bias in any way. In fact, I would say it's blade bias. It really is kind of a neutral flipper though. If you have more of a blade bias taste, this will be something for you. The balance is right on the end of the first slot inside the channel. It's pretty neutral, to say the least, and it flows pretty smoothly. That's the one thing I wanted to especially say about it, is the bushings are very well done. One thing though that I think I did come to a very like abrupt analysis of is that this is more of a wrist flipper than a normal flipper. What I mean by wrist flipper is that most of the effort you're going to be using to flip this knife is going to be in your wrist and in your fingers. That is where this knife excels. And when I mean excel, I mean excels. This knife, when you're wrist flipping it, is crazy good. One of the best flippers I've ever touched, and I'm not exaggerating. I have had such a good experience with this knife since my realization of wrist flipping. I have landed everything. I have not gotten cut. Well, that's not true. I got cut by accident because I was messing around. But I have not gotten severely cut. I have landed almost every single trick. I've tried new tricks, tried new combos. This knife just does it. It's like a robot. You tell it what to do, and it just does it. It was very similar to the Solo in that fact. In fact, if anything, I would say this only has a little bit more blade bias than the Solo. Besides that, though, completely the same. Just as rigid, not as quiet, because it rings a lot, especially when you drop it. I would say it's just as solid as the Solo. The tolerances are just as good as the Solo. And again, the balance is kind of similar. A little bit more blade bias for the Monarch. But besides that, it's similar in the fact that the Solo is very much a wrist flipper. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. I've had a good experience with this knife since figuring out the wrist flipping. It's done aerials very predictably. It's done like more complicated tricks like scissors, giraffes, ladders very consistently. In fact, ladders are some of the favorite tricks for this knife. When I first got the Monarch a while ago and I tried ladders, I was scared for it because of how sharp the tip was, especially after it being retipped. But ladders are so consistent on this knife, surprisingly with no jimping. I think that just goes to show how well the beat blast is on this knife. I think this knife is a very good knife. I don't really want to give this knife a score because my opinions may change because I'm still flipping it. But if anything, I'm going to tell you guys that this knife is not something to sleep on, especially since they are depreciating. I straight traded a latchless Chab for this, and it's completely restored. That is crazy. Like, that was mind-boggling. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure you slap the like button. We're going to be checking out the Artsy Flips Wave next week. Actually, no, this coming week. We're going to be checking that out. And I also have a 3D printed Zippy that I'm going to be checking out for all you 3D printed fanboys. So stick around for those videos. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure you slap that like button. And I'll see you guys next time.